Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, who is this Sonic the Hedgehog, and why does he have to go so fast? If you're a Nintendo kid, the answer might surprise you. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Yeah.
Last episode I talked about going to one of those like trampoline places, and some of them they make you like get special socks that have grip on it.
Okay.
Because they don't want they're trying to minimize the ankle breakage.
Right. As already discussed, the liability insurance has to be through the roof.
This place they didn't care at all, so you just like wore your own socks or didn't, depending on how dirty you were, how much you wanted ringworm. But the all the blue foam is attached to my socks now. And I should clarify, I washed these socks, since going to the
you've done a load of laundry since you went to okay. All right.
Yeah, but it still clings onto it, so I may have actually tracked it into
You're saying
your
there's
apartment.
blue trampoline place foam fuzz in my house now?
But washed. It was washed.
Oh, okay.
Sanitized. I don't even know.
I bet it is still soaked with the sweat of people who were just in there jumping around.
Hopefully not.
Well, fair enough. Mark, let's confess something here.
Okay.
We're not super close to Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's right.
We know that he's a hedgehog. We know that he's got some animal friends. We know that they can all run very fast. They take a special point of pride in how fast they can run. And they collect rings from an evil scientist.
Yes. And that's pretty much all I know. I was a Nintendo kid. I never owned any Sega consoles. My friend had a Genesis. I played a little bit of Sonic and Tails, or I guess so Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
That's right.
But I never really understood it because the platforming I was familiar with was good old-fashioned course-based Super Mario Brothers, where, the goal is to get from one end to the other, and you have power-ups, and it's a little slower paced, where, of course, we know that the one of the big selling points for Sonic the Hedgehog was all about speed, and I never really understood how it worked.
And there's a new Sonic release this week, Sonic Mania. So we feel like we're at a little bit of a loss. We need to have Sonic explained to us. We need to have a vigorous debate about Sonic. We need to figure it out.
Yeah, we're ready to solve the Sonic the Hedgehog puzzle.
That's right. Who is a comedian and producer here at What's a Creative. He helps us with this show. And he is convinced that he is going to be able to explain Sonic to us. Is that right? Am I making assumptions here, Mark?
No, I think that's totally fair.
Great. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Rian. All right, Ryan.
Yes.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear like a blanket pitch. Like, what is someone says Sonic the Hedgehog, defend your passion.
It's all the best parts about Mario, mixed in with a little Michael Jackson.
That actually sounds really appealing.
Yeah, he was totally developed in order to. I'm sure you guys are aware. Sega had the Sega Master Console before the
Master System.
Yeah, and so when
Master System.
Okay, let's stop a second. Because
in my defense, I am not a Sega person. This is not a Sega podcast.
Right. This is not the Sega Cartridge Society.
No.
The Nintendo Sega Society.
I was also about to do that.
That would be wrong.
It's not right.
That would be wrong.
Sega Master System.
Yeah.
We got it. We're there.
Mega Drive.
The Master.
Am I just shouting out?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was the Master System. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And then that was the 8-bit console. And then so Sega one-upped Nintendo and came out with the Sega Genesis, the 16-bit. And originally it was packaged, I think, with
Altered Beast.
Yeah, which was a great game. Everything was a little bit more adult-oriented. But thank goodness they decided to reboot their brand. They wanted a new mascot. They went from was it Alex Kidd, or is that correct?
I think like Alex Kidd was a first like shot at a Sega mascot.
Yeah,
and just didn't.
He was a little boy. I honestly don't think I would buy any game system that just has a little boy trying to push it. Like it just brings
I feel like kids in general don't really want to be kids. Right?
No, yeah.
It's like we want to be Han Solo, we want to be Indiana Jones, we want to be Batman. We don't want to be
Short Round.
We don't want to be
or one of the Ewoks.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Who's the child in Batman? Is there a child in Batman? No one wants to be Robin.
No one wants to be Robin. They want to be an anthropologic, right?
Anthropomorphic.
Yep. Hedgehog who has awesome Michael Jackson shoes.
Exactly. So what's your it's very rare that we have somebody who is not a huge Nintendo fan.
I despise Nintendo. I am the worst.
Goodness.
I'm going to put that down. I'm the first anti-Nintendo guest to come on the pod.
All right, Patrick, let's put it in the book.
All right. First, and I'm not even sure how I would spell this word.
And so, but like when I was telling you about this podcast, like you were really excited to come on to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. So what's like were you always a Sega kid? Like was the Genesis your first system?
Yes, the Sega Genesis was my first system. I had the sweet RBI series baseball game. I think it was like RBI 4 or 5 or something like that. And then, but I mean, it doesn't matter because the real game, the one that mattered, was Sonic the Hedgehog. And we had Sonic the Hedgehog, and then we had Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And one of the great things, and another selling point of Sonic, is the fact that it's a multiplayer co-op game. Unlike Mario, where you're basically competing Mario against Luigi if you're doing a 2-player game, right? Sonic, and if you were getting Sonic 2, and I had 2 sisters who were always, we were always playing together. My sisters Kendra and Kristen, they were even bigger Sonic nerds than I am, and I actually emailed them for some notes in case I forgot anything, because they still to this day are huge Sonic heads. And we just would always, one of us would be Tails and one of us would be Sonic, and we'd be just scooting around.
Is it co-op in, I guess, like in Nintendo terms, because that's how my brain works, like Donkey Kong Country, where there are 2 characters on the screen, but only one person is controlling them at a time? It's like you play a Sonic until you die, and then Tails, the person who's playing Tails.
See, that's the great thing. So 2 controllers, same time.
Oh, okay, so it's like Kirby Superstar.
Yeah, the game is locked on Sonic.
Yes.
It's not split screen. It's single screen. It's locked on Sonic. If you're Tails, you're trying to keep up with Sonic. And then whenever you would drop off, you would fly back onto the screen because he's got 2 tails, which means obviously he can fly. That's
obviously
the best.
Like it's a helicopter. It makes intuitive sense.
Yeah.
This was one of my hangups about playing Sonic 2 2-player was that whoever is playing Tails is always going to be left behind. Right? Is always going to be left behind by a Sonic that is just like blazing along, having the time of his life. And like you want to be there to help, to be like, I can help you reach that higher platform. Could you do that in Sonic 2 or just Sonic 3?
I think it was I'm not going to claim to be an expert. It's been a while.
That's right. And we don't claim to be experts either. We're not experts. We're fans.
Yeah, we're fans. But I'm fairly certain that even I'm thinking too, you could still pick up Sonic and like fly to higher points of the map.
Right.
It forced co-op. I think Sonic 2 forced people to be friendly. It created a world where if everyone played Sonic 2, we wouldn't be in the mess that we are in today.
Of course, we did not all play Sonic 2. So.
Yeah.
Right. So there are some Nazis in the world right now.
Exactly. Once again, I can go on the record. I believe Charlottesville is the cause of Nintendo. I think Nintendo caused...
Wait, that Charlottesville caused Nintendo?
No, I'm pretty sure Nintendo caused Charlottesville.
Oh, okay, right.
There we go.
I mean, no, not okay.
Yeah. I understand what he's saying.
Right, but boo to that.
Yeah,
right.
It makes sense, guys. It makes total sense.
So, I guess like for me, I played a little bit of Sonic at like friend's house. And I think it was Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yeah.
And when it became available on the Wii Virtual Console, I bought Sonic the Hedgehog, the original, but like the Master System port.
Yes.
Like the down port that they made for the 8-bit system. And I'm very used to, like, my brain, when it comes to platformers, just works in like the Super Mario Brothers mode, where it's kind of course based and you're getting from point A to point B. And it's not really about like, as you play it, you kind of just like turn it into a time trial type thing, like you're trying to make it through fast. But that's not really the point of a Mario level. And so I have never really understood the Sonic the Hedgehog version of platforming, and I don't know if they're as different as I'm making it out to be, but it seems like in Sonic, I feel like the best way I've had it described is like going fast is your reward for doing well in Sonic.
Yes.
But I don't even understand the basic like mechanics of how you're supposed to like traverse a level.
I sometimes wonder if Sonic, if you can tell if someone's a Sonic lover by if they were a kid, they were the ones that would just charge headstrong without any idea of where they were going. I think, and then versus someone who would be careful and make sure that they weren't going to fall. Because I was definitely a charging kid. I did not know how to control my body, and I feel like Sonic is he's a symbol of that. You know, he's just going. He's going full swing.
Did you get a lot of injuries as a kid?
Oh yeah. I was
broken bones.
No broken bones.
All right. Concussions.
I was too bouncy for that. Never really had any problems with concussion. I mean, maybe there's a chance I could have had a lot of undiagnosed concussions.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you put up. I love the comparison of Sonic to Mario because one of the reasons that Sonic is the way it is back in when Mario, it didn't have save points, and so one of the things that a lot of people would do is kind of rush through the early levels as fast as they could so they could get to the meteor stuff later on because they had just played it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I know, where the creator of Sonic actually came up with that concept of, well, why can't we make a whole character where his basis is just to go as fast as possible? And the beautiful thing about a Sonic level is there's so many different areas and you're never going to hit them all. And so it is a lot of like you're exploring and you actually get rewarded for going faster because it'll get you to higher points. And if you're taking your time, you're gonna end up with more enemies to take care of, and it's just it's genius.
So I like what you were talking about, how like this idea of just in Mario levels you are super careful because enemies can do damage to you if you are careless. If you're like going too fast and you let an enemy touch you without you like jumping on it or killing it with a fireball, you take damage and you die.
Yeah.
And like Sonic rewards you for going like head first into an enemy. Is that right?
Yeah, because if you think about Sonic 2 with the advent of the Sonic Spin, it actually is almost a defensive. It's as offensive and defensive at the same time because you're going to go real fast, and if you hit an enemy while in the spin, it will actually release the animal that's inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever heard of Mario releasing animals. He's a murderer. He kills,
Mm-hmm.
he kills.
Yeah.
Sonic is doing this to help save animals.
Sonic himself is an animal, though, so I think he's just saving his own kind.
Yeah, so that's inherently selfish.
Right.
Oh. Okay. Well,
I mean, he's basically a global warming denier at that point.
Well, so Sonic does have like an environmentalist message to it, right?
Yes.
Because Dr. Robotnik is always trying to,
Or Eggman,
or Eggman. Which do you prefer?
a Robotnik.
When did that change?
Robotnik.
When did that change? When did he become
that
Eggman?
changed after the Sega Genesis. I think it went to Dreamcast, more into the they tried to boot the series and make it less about. They started adding humans and different other make it more of an RPG type thing. And then I think because I believe in Japan, Eggman was his original name.
Yeah, I think
and
it was
Robotnik
always Eggman in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, my head works this way. So it's like a Toadstool Princess Peach situation where it was always Peach and
Yeah, and also it's just like people are gonna call. I think there's a camp of people that are always going to refer to him as Dr. Robotnik, and a camp of people that are like, what? He's always been Eggman. And this is going to be another thing that divides us.
Yeah, another thing that tears our country apart. But that's his whole purpose. He's and he wants to, and that's why Sonic has to defeat him so that we don't have to worry about that decision anymore.
But Robotnik is trying to, take the resources of the forest or imprison these animals or whatever, and so Sonic stopping him is sort of an environmental feat, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Sonic is a crusader for the forest and for
A freedom fighter.
a freedom fighter.
Yeah. That's the other thing that I love about Sonic. And I think Mario had something similar with his Saturday morning cartoon show. But there is a complete galaxy. There's like a whole universe of Sonic the Hedgehog. And there's actually several. The one I prefer to follow is the Archie series, which is based off of
R.I.P.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's no longer the
R.I.P..
longest running video game comic. It's a Guinness Book record, at least as of right now, until someone, because now they're no longer. Unfortunately, they've been sold. I can't remember who took that license.
IDW took it.
Oh, IDW. Ugh.
You got something against IDW, man?
Well, now I'm going to have to. But I mean, like, it was such a great. Like, I just remember watching the Saturday morning cartoon show with, it was what's his name?
Jaleel White.
Yes, Jaleel White. Good old, why is my brain not working?
Steve
Family
Urkel?
Matters. Thank you. It was Steve
Stefan
Urkel every,
Urkel?
yeah, Steve Urkel every Saturday morning. Yeah, no, but yeah, it was. I mean, like, and it competed as well with a more child-friendly interpretation of Sonic, if you will, which I like to think of as sort of like a fever dream, more of a Jacob's Ladder, like when the Sonic from the Archie series was going to sleep. This was probably the world that the children were seeing. But then, never mind. I have a whole universe in my head, guys. My sisters created a cardboard town of Sonic the Hedgehog in our upstairs room. I mean, it
Based
was
off that animated
based
series?
on that animated series, and it was like they had a doctor's office and a mail office, and these were shoe boxes and everything because they didn't have enough merchandise, honestly, at the time.
So you've obviously got like a connection to the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon and the Archie comic series, and like it seems like that is additive to the Sonic video games, whereas the Mario stuff, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and the Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo movie
Masterpiece
is a train wreck, right?
Yeah.
Like. For me, Mario doesn't make sense, and this conversation doesn't have to just be Mario v Sonic.
No,
like,
no.
we'll move past that.
But I would like to. Well, go ahead with your point.
My point is that Mario never benefits from being presented outside of his games, where Sonic does seem to benefit from that.
I think so, and I think the reason why is because if you look at Mario as like the Paris Hilton or the Kim Kardashian of video games. He has a good image. He knows how to sell, but when it comes down, he's pretty flat. Okay, Sonic is like the Laurence Olivier. He knows how to act. You can throw him in something. There's substance. There's dimensions.
I will actually go along with this metaphor. Like, I do think that there's a good analog between like Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, whereas like Mickey Mouse is very wholesome. Disney doesn't take risks with him, really. He's not mischievous, really, because he is the face of the corporation.
Right.
He's a little boring.
Yeah.
Right? Versus Bugs Bunny gets into trouble. His cartoons are occasionally racist. And I feel like you have that same sort of dynamic, especially in the 90s, when it was like Sonic was all about attitude and being in your face, and Mario has always been kind of the buttoned up corporate mascot.
Yeah, my favorite presentation of Sonic, I know that with the new Sonic Mania that's coming out, that one of their bases.
It has come out.
Oh, it has come out. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because we are definitely recording this after it has been released.
Oh, excellent. The basis, I think one of the designers picked was the weight screen of the original Sonic, where if you weren't running, as similar to you were saying about being rewarded for running, Sonic would visibly turn to you and start tapping his foot. Like, he would get angry.
He wants you to go.
He's breaking that fourth wall. He's acting. He's showing. He's emoting. I mean, he was connecting with the audience.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of what's the name of that Daffy Duck cartoon where the animator is erasing him and
I don't know the name of it.
But it's the one where he's erasing. Yeah.
But
ain't
that
he
is
a
a
stinker?
Sonic.
Ain't he a stinker? That's what he's saying to you guys. I honestly think he could be cast in anything today. And never mind. But that might be too far. You guys heard the rumor though about Sonic 3, right? That's not really a rumor anymore.
Oh yeah, Michael Jackson contributed music to it.
Yeah. Did he do that to Mario?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, the Mario music had. So I do think that music is one of the places where Sonic is like the most unique. That like you don't hear Sonic music or music that sounds like Sonic the Hedgehog music anywhere else.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's got that cool poppy edge to it, and it's kind of funky. And I don't know. That's something that I feel like is gone from the series for a lot of its life.
It was lost, and I think a lot of that is there was a lot of experimentation. I think there was a loss with the character after the original. I know a lot of the original team stopped after, I believe, Sonic 2 or maybe Sonic 3. And after that, they kind of, and I think it was kind of like it paralleled with Sega, the console, where they were trying they're trying so hard to stay on top, to be competing, and it was just, I don't know if it was just poor management or lack of vision.
Where do you get off the Sonic train? Like, where did you stop following the series?
So I was very strong on the Genesis. My sister continued with the Saturn. She purchased a Saturn and a Dreamcast. The Saturn, hoping that Sonic, I believe it was Extreme, was going to come out. The game that never dropped. So Saturn actually became kind of a desert for Sonic. And then, of course, Dreamcast had 3D Blast, I believe, right? Isn't that correct?
3D Blast is an error. That's like the isometric, like 3/4 view.
Or was that for Genesis? Oh, I'm getting
I think it's on Genesis, and then there was a
like the 32X or something.
There was a Sonic CD, which was on the Sega CD, and on the 32X had a game called
Sonic Adventure. That's what I was thinking.
Sonic Adventure, yeah. And Sonic Adventure, we just popped into my Sega Dreamcast. It's the first Sonic game that I ever owned.
Yeah.
As the Dreamcast was my first Sega system, the first one that I actually purchased on September 9th, 1999, the day it came out. And I love that game.
Yeah.
I recognize obviously that it is full of flaws, and it's missing a lot of that kind of, or at least the music part that we were talking about. By this point, it had switched over to the sort of like pop punky, almost sounding like Blink-182 or like Good Charlotte or something.
Well, it followed, I believe, Neverwinter Nights, right? Or Never, right?
Or just Nights?
Nights, yes.
The Nights into Dreams.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes, not Neverwinter. I believe is a Dungeons and Dragons.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah. But yeah, Nights, which I think that Sonic became sort of a sign of the time. Like he would become basically a sign of the times. He would, if RPGs were big, then he would be in an RPG. If games like Nights, they had success with that, so they turned Sonic into something similar to that. And yeah, I think they got lost. They lost, and I think that's where it's really cool with like Sonic Mania going back straight to just like where it began. And one of the cool things I know a lot of people are talking about is, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it as well, is that it has the same flaws as that original concept. Now that we've grown, it's like going back and playing GoldenEye. Where it's like, I want to do this, but I can't because it's limited, and I'm used to doing more. But that is sort of like the beauty of it, because those limitations are also what makes the game. Another thing that I remember someone talking about is that you can only go so fast, and then the human mind can't comprehend it. And so once that happened, they had to come up.
Speed of light, sure.
Yeah, and so they had to come up with different ways to try to keep you attached to the games, and that's where the RPG elements and some of these experimentations came in and failed, I think. But it is. It's like, they want to keep changing, keep everything changing, otherwise it won't be fresh.
So what is your favorite Sonic game?
Oh, gosh. Sonic 2, probably, because it's the most pure. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, of course, were really fun because it added, this new guy in town who at the time was pretty bad-butted, and
yeah, he's a bad dude.
Yeah, he's a bad dude, and he's like everything Sonic wasn't, And they had some other elements that they added. I mean, like of course being able to play Knuckles on a lot of the games too. That was really cool. But I mean,
did you guys have the lock-on cartridge?
We rented it all the time.
Oh yeah,
we were renters, big Blockbuster renters for video games.
Did you guys ever get like the whole video game tower going, where you had like the Genesis and then the Game Genie on top of that, and then the Sonic and Knuckles, and then Sonic 3 on top of that?
My friends
like
definitely
8 inches
had.
tall.
Yeah, it's just like plug and plug. I kind of miss that sometimes. The card. It's like vinyl.
Yes.
Just being able to have a cartridge physically in your hand, it's not the same. Yeah. Oh man. But I definitely think Sonic 2, playing with my sisters, and we would spend so many nights just playing together and taking turns. Who was Sonic? Who was Tails? And just switching back and forth. It was a lot of fun. And it was never. And one of the things I love too. It's like board games. Sometimes it's fun to play board games against people, but then sometimes it's like, was it Pandemic? I think is pretty cooperative, and like other games like that, where it's like, a united cause. And what better cause than a giant Eggman who's trying to
and stopping him,
kidnap all the animals? Yeah.
How do you feel about Sonic's friends? Obviously we've talked a little bit about Tails and being able to play as him as a second player, and Knuckles. There's a much bigger cast than like just those core three, but like, are you into those characters, or do you dislike? Like, how do you feel?
I wouldn't say I'm not as much into them because they do break from what the era that I came up in.
Yeah.
Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles were my primary crew. Amy Rose was added with, I believe, the Sega CD. Was her first appearance, and so I never had that, so I never really understood where she was coming from. And then when they went and had the game with everyone else, I know there was the big fishing cat and the robot.
And there's a robot in there too. Yeah,
it's like,
this Sonic Adventure. Yeah,
it's adding too much. It's like Smash Brothers, like the characters that you never play.
Mm-hmm.
Those are who they are to me, honestly. So like I like the pure. It's like the dream team, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The Beatles. You wouldn't add people to the Beatles, I don't think. Right?
I wouldn't. I would say I would not.
Like, would you rather see?
I'd add a bunch of people to the Beatles.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone likes that Eric Clapton plays the guitar solo, and while my guitar gently weeps, you add people to the Beatles.
Well, that's why Sonic Adventure is your favorite Sonic game.
That's right.
Those shoes too, man. You can't beat those shoes. That's all I'm saying.
Sonic shoes or
Sonic shoes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Eric Clapton shoes.
Yeah. Oh, Eric Clapton shoes. Oh yeah. My brain's just going. But yeah.
Well, also, I mean, going back to the idea that Mario's a little buttoned up and Sonic is a little more hip and cool. What's hip and cool is always changing.
Yes.
And I feel like, as an outside observer, that has also affected Sonic, right? Where it seems like they do always have to be chasing what, especially in the transition from like 2D to 3D, kind of like, oh, what's cool now? Basically, they have to like Rostify him a little bit.
Sure, a la Poochie from The Simpsons. I think it's interesting now that Sonic he doesn't actually have to be cool anymore, right? Like there is no expectation that Sonic is 2017 cool, right? That's nothing that we're expecting of him.
No. Right, they finally like broke away from that.
He's like a period piece now, right? That we can see Sonic through the lens of like we're looking at an artifact of the early 90s, right?
We say that, but I actually don't know if that's true, because there are a lot of people who like enjoy there's a lot of Sonic porn out there is what I'm saying, right? And it's like, so there's a lot of people who do enjoy the Sonic universe for what it is, not what it was.
Do you think that's what the Sonic universe is, or do you think
pornography?
Or do you think that's just like a weird fan and I understand that like at some point you can't really separate like the fan canon from actual canon.
I think it goes back to Laurence Olivier.
As it always does.
Yes. And if you think about Lawrence was in
Lawrence?
Lawrence?
No, I just like that you're on a first name basis.
Yeah, Lawrence was in a lot of really big hits. None that I can name off the top of my head, but they were famous. And I'm sure that he had a dud every now and then in there. And I bet you he had a fan following that probably animated, sexual images of the dear Lawrence.
Well,
I would guess that that's not true.
But your point is well taken.
Wait, is it? I don't know what the point is.
It is that there's I think when looking back, people like I, who grew up with Sonic and Sonic 2, and like those were a big part of our childhood. We have a certain view of Sonic, as opposed to people who have been continuing to read the Archie comics or came up with Sonic Boom, where it's like a huge cast and now there's humans involved. Ugh.
Humans.
By the way, I will say this: as a Sonic fan, any time that Sonic is in some sort of world where there's humans, I am against. He is a animal, like other than Robotnik and I believe his nephew who works for him. There should be no other humans in the Sonic universe. It's like the Mario movie and having it take place in New York.
But thank you for bringing up. Well, in Mario canon, originally Mario was from New York City, but that's neither here nor there. But thank you for bringing up like Sonic Boom.
Yes.
Because I think that's a good example of like a way that Sega has felt it's important to keep Sonic like current, right?
Mm-hmm.
They like reinvent the character and redesign the character, and they put him in like new situations, like whatever is like I feel like having him out there like in cartoons keeps him relevant, but to like kids, but also it does change the trajectory of the character.
What's interesting about Sonic Boom is that it seems like they've. How long has Sonic Boom been around now? Maybe 2 years?
I feel like it's been longer
it's
than
been a
that, like
while.
at least 4.
Okay. I would say 4 tops, though. Sonic Boom, it feels like that's something they're already backing away from, right? Like they released maybe 2 or 3 games under the Sonic Boom branding. None of them were particularly well received, and then there's a show, and I think people like the show well enough. But like both Sonic Mania and the new Sonic Forces are not being released under the Sonic Boom banner.
Thank goodness.
What's that?
Oh, I was just saying, thank goodness.
Well, see, yeah. So like, what is that like? People aren't buying into Sonic Boom. Is my read on that wrong? Like, I don't think. I think Sonic Boom was a failed like reset on the series.
Well, was it Mickey Mouse and crew, or was it Bugs Bunny where they did the revamp? I think it was Bugs Bunny that they did like this revamp and they were trying to make it cool and hip. I don't even know if it came out.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about. There's like art of them and they're all like a bunch of like right angles. They almost all look like lightning bolts.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it never came to happen, which is how I feel Sonic Boom should have been.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is something where it's like they are. I think it is important that they try to explore ways of making it relevant. But at the same time, that's where I really like what they're doing with these new games that are coming out. Because it's sort of playing service to both sides, and it's like finding they. I think that's one thing that I think Sega is starting to understand is that there's multiple facets of the same character, and that there's no reason because they're not tied to him being attached to a game system, a Mickey Mouser, if you will, where it's like we need to keep him pure. They can kind of explore different angles of the same character.
And they did a little bit of that in Sonic Generations, which we were talking about before we started rolling, which was maybe like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. And Generations brought, like actually split the character of Sonic into 2 different Sonics. That there's modern era Sonic and old Sonic, which is like a little bit pudgier and like the kind of cute 16-bit graphic style.
Yeah.
And presenting those 2 different kinds of gameplay in one. And I remember thinking at the time, like, these 2 Sonics are too similar for me to like tell the difference between the 2 of them. Like one is a little bit chubbier.
Well, but I do like in theory that they are leaning into that Sonic Generations, and now you have Sonic Mania, which is a very hard like break from what Sonic has been.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still have Sonic Forces, which is more, I guess, at this point has also been around longer, like that 3D kind of Sonic platforming. And they now have the opportunity to explore both of those very clearly, like they're very clearly delineated, in a way that we haven't really seen before. In a similar way, you have like the new Super Mario Brothers series, which has devoted itself, purely to like the traditional 2D platform, well, traditional in quotes, 2D platforming. versus Super Mario Odyssey, which I would say is like a fairly large change for what we've seen Mario do in the past.
Would you say that? I would almost think we've been comparing him to Mario, but maybe that's been our mistake, Nintendo Cartridge Society fans and people. Maybe maybe he should be compared to Link. And I mean, when you think about the Zelda games, and we have, was it what was the one that, I mean, like, where they were exploring different gameplay, and like each game is sort of a reset, and not necessarily connected to the previous games. And I mean, like, I feel like they don't necessarily build off of each other all the time, right?
That's totally true, and seems to be very true of like Sonic as well. You have on the Wii, you had like Sonic and what was it, like the Black Knight, and then Sonic Colors, and lots of different. There was that BioWare.
What was the wolf one?
Oh.
He was a werehog, hedgehog.
Oh, that's beyond me. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that is interesting because there is such a like sharp divide between the like 3D Sonic and 2D Sonic that it almost does seem more in line with the difference between a 2D Zelda and a 3D Zelda.
Yeah.
That like obviously 3D Mario is different from 2D Mario, but I know it seems like more of like a one-to-one. Mario likes to run and jump and, whatever, collect stuff and be Mario, have fun. That's what he likes to do. But like a 3D Zelda is a fundamentally different experience of like being in a world and being of the world and having these sort of storytelling experiences. And maybe like that's the same size difference for Sonic.
Yeah, and then when also you have, what was that game? The game that came out where it was like 2D, a 2D version, kind of like more. I'm not a Nintendo fan. I don't know. You guys have to.
Is Zelda?
It's Zelda. Yeah.
Is this like A Link Between Worlds?
Yeah,
where
I
you
think
would like
so.
you could change from a 3D view to like, or like a more 3D view to a.
Didn't they come out similar, like around the same time as another game too, or it wasn't? It followed pretty quickly one of the other Zelda games, didn't it? Or I don't know. Maybe I'm going down a rabbit hole, guys. Once again, I'm not a Nintendo fan.
Well, that's actually not that far off from like the Metroid series that Metroid Fusion and Prime came out at basically the exact same time, and Fusion being a traditional 2D Metroid game, and the original Prime being a first-person 3D adventure. Like coming out in concert together, which is a little bit like how they approach Sonic Boom as well. That like they released a 2D game and 3D right on top of each other. So like I get that there's this like duality to Sonic, in a way that I think is only possible from games that have been around or series that have been around as long as Sonic, right?
Yeah.
And it's I think we can count those series on like one hand, right? Like Mario's that way, Metroid's that way, Zelda's that way, and Sonic is that way. Which I don't know, it puts Sonic in like really cool company, and makes it like by extension have that same sort of prestige. And I think it's interesting like how much we were talking, and it's just the nature of us all being as old as we are and having played Sonic and Mario when we were young, but like Sonic isn't a not Nintendo thing right now, like it's been on Nintendo platforms for so long,
and it's so weird. See, and that's one of the things I think is I never thought there'd be a day where I would be comfortable with that and be able to sit down with a bunch of Nintendo nerds and talk about it. Because honestly, I remember
is possible,
right?
Yeah.
And I've only felt like I've been gonna be like beaten up like once or twice during this conversation.
Oh yeah, because Sega fans are definitely the bullies in this situation.
Oh yeah,
let's be honest.
We got the dude. What can I say? But no, it's something strange that was a huge deal when Sonic came over to Nintendo, and I mean I think that is something that plays a part in Sonic of today too. Is that he's a flagship character with nothing to flag. Or I guess he's
a mascot for nothing.
Yeah, and I mean it is a sad
himself.
state of affairs. When Sega decided to pull out of the games race, the arms race of video games, it really did leave. I think that struck a blow. I mean, like you could kind of see it as and then that was the sad thing about Sega. I feel it wasn't something that happened overnight. you could kind of see it, the writing on the wall with Dreamcast and the sales on Dreamcast and such. The lack of games coming over from Japan to America because they just didn't think that there was a market. And it is something that the attitude, the energy of Sega Genesis was such a thing of the moment, and was something that was such a high, and to see something as beautiful as that peter out, guys, I might cry on this podcast.
It is very interesting to think of like that Sonic of the 90s and the early aughts, like what it would turn, because it would have had to have evolved, and what it would evolve into. Like, what is the 21st century version of Sega look like as a gaming powerhouse?
Oh, you mean if
like the Dreamcast had been successful?
Yeah. I mean, great question, right? Like they would have had to put more just development power behind their other franchises and behind Sonic, but like, I don't know. I always have a hard time thinking of like, oh yeah, here are the other games that Sega makes. Like, did either of you ever play Sonic and Sega All Stars Kart Racing or whatever the name of that game is?
No, was that for Game?
It was on like every system.
Yeah, it was on everything.
It was
at
like
some
PS3.
Point.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, it's mostly Sonic characters and then like a couple other characters from around the Sega verse.
Yeah.
But it's just like, man, that Sonic roster, even if like you don't, know who like Shadow the Hedgehog is or Amy or, whatever, that like they're all they've got like a personality and a presence in a way that these other characters don't.
Well, and Sega's big like selling point for a long time was the almost arcade perfect ports of arcade titles. And as arcades died, you weren't itching to play Virtua Fighter at home anymore, or Virtua Cop. It was different. That's all.
Well, and I think you also look at how Xbox and PlayStation, I mean, they were the ones that kind of sealed the deal for the death of the Dreamcast. And a lot of that was they stole a lot of the adult content, or not even the content itself, but a lot of the gamers.
Yeah, that idea of like, oh, it's a little more grown up than the Nintendo platform.
Because that was the whole basis of the original slate of Sega Genesis games, was to show that, oh, hey, look, this is the, you can play Nintendo with your, the neighborhood kids, or you can be a grown man
and play Altered Beast.
Play some Altered Beast, yeah. Or run around in Sonic the Hedgehog. But, I mean, yeah.
Or Mutant League Football.
Yeah.
So if you were to, just like, I guess just pitch somebody on why they should play the classic Sonic the Hedgehog's games, what would you tell them?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, well, I always look at you as like the ideal non-believer.
Thank you.
So if I was to try to convert you, I would say, hello, my name is Ryan. Have you ever heard of Sonic the Hedgehog?
And let's pretend in this universe I didn't close the door on you.
Okay.
And so continue playing the scenario out, though.
Oh, right? Sorry. We're role playing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm on my way to work, but if you want to walk to me in my car, you can say whatever you're going to say.
Thank you. Well, I just want you to know that there's this wonderful creature called Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's trying to save the environment by going really fast. Do you like going fast?
And I care about saving the environment.
Have you ever thought that, Nintendo games just take too long, and that, there's too much puzzling involved?
Take too long? Is the selling point of Sonic the Hedgehog that they're short?
It takes too long to get to where you want to be.
Okay.
To get to where you want to be,
I mean, I guess I hadn't considered it before.
Do you have friends?
Like a handful.
Oh. Well,
wait, I mean, why am I telling you this? Well, why do I feel so comfortable opening up to you?
It's because I'm a freedom fighter. I'm a freedom fighter in the battle against the Eggman, and I think that you too can join us and join the holy trilogy of the holy trinity of Sonic the Hedgehog, Knuckles, and Tails. and together we can save the world.
Wow, forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful pitch.
Excuse me, have both of you heard the word of Christ?
Get out! This is my turf.
Well, was there any other Sonic the Hedgehog knowledge you wanted to dump on us before? This is your chance. This is
Well, I mean, I dropped the Michael Jackson connection, which I think itself, the fact that Michael Jackson thought it was cool enough, that's got to be it. Something, right? I do like that Sonic has been incorporated into a lot of Nintendo games as a former Sega head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Smash Brothers, he's a playable character.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to beat it out with, like really bringing on the Titans. And seeing how it goes.
I feel like if ever there was a moment where it was like, I can't believe this is happening, it's Sonic and Mario in a fighter game.
Yeah. That's unheard of. That's like Marvel versus
Capcom?
DC. But yeah, or Capcom. Yeah.
I would love a Marvel versus Capcom style game that is Marvel versus DC.
Yeah,
I'd play that in a heartbeat.
And I would love a Sonic fighting game to be remade and brought, because I think there was a fighting game too, right? Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's all pitch our ideal Sonic games.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll take Sonic fighting game because I do like fighters a lot, one-on-one fighters. I would want it to be huge arenas played like split screen, or maybe people have separate screens if you're on Switch or whatever. But like where you can build up like speed to attack each other. I think that'd be cool. And I think Sonic's got a big enough cast that it would be fun.
It's almost like I don't think this actually existed, but in my head, like an American Gladiators like kind of challenge for some reason, where there's two big like half pipes that you keep like running up and
I love
like
it.
Smash into each other at high speeds.
Enormous death half pipes. I love it.
I would go the route that I think I was talking about before we started recording. We skip a generation of games. Sega comes back out with its own hardware. It's 3D virtual reality.
2019 is coming up soon.
They have their own virtual reality. It's on par with Oculus Rift. We have a Sonic the Hedgehog game, which is in the line of Rez, in that you are speeding through tunnels of time, and as you're doing it, the sweet, sweet sounds of music are being created, and and you see you hear the soulful voice of Michael Jackson in both your ears. That's my ideal game.
So we're resurrecting Michael Jackson.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So my pitch for a Sonic game is like a picture this. All right.
Dig, if you will, a picture.
Yes. There's a manor house, right? It's stormy. It's cloudy. Lightning striking. Rain against the window.
Oh, okay.
Cut to inside. A shadowy figure is like training inside the gym. Thunder crashes. Lightning strikes. The face of Sonic the Hedgehog lights up. He's a little older. He's more wizened. He has like scars. The camera is like a third person camera. It's really cinematic, where you have to like bridges collapse underneath you, and then you have to press like A, B, and then A again to climb up.
So wait.
This is Logan, right? We're talking Logan Sonic. We're talking a Logan version of Sonic.
It's like Logan mixed with Uncharted gameplay, and I call it Sonic.
Win.
It's Sonic the Last of Us.
Yeah. Tails is dead. Oh my God. What if there's a tombstone? One, or I was going to say one single, but actually two single tombstones outside, and it just says Tails.
Yes. Yeah.
At first, I thought you were going to pitch a Tails mansion a la Luigi's Mansion.
Oh, that would have been good too.
Like a Tails solo game where he's hunting ghosts or something.
Maybe if this was a Nintendo platform for pansies. This is an Xbox One exclusive.
Whoa! Oh my gosh.
All right, well, I think we've pitched 3.5 good games here.
I love them all.
Ryan, thank you for coming in to talk to us about Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's my pleasure. And guys, I'll be honest, you're the first Nintendo podcast that I ever listened to.
Wow.
And it is because I hate Nintendo and I like listening so I can get tips on how I can defeat it. But I'm gonna, we'll see.
Well, is there anything you'd like to pitch while you're here?
Guys, listen to this podcast because honestly, they're amazing. I mean, you guys, honestly, I do love listening to you guys, and being on this show has just reinforced how much fun this is. So, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
It's been very fun to have you on. So that was our conversation with Ryan about Sonic the Hedgehog, but obviously you've got experience with this franchise that we don't have, and Mark and I would love to hear everyone else's take here, because it's obviously a very popular franchise.
Yeah, were you able to coexist in the two worlds of Nintendo and Sega?
Yeah, did you refuse to pick a side during the console wars?
Pick a side. Don't
Pick
be a
a side.
coward.
Nazis are bad. We all know this. You can write to us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
I don't want to hear any debate that Nazis aren't that bad.
Yeah, don't write to us about
Don't write
that.
to us about that. Just write to us about Sonic the Hedgehog. I'll take any side of the Sonic the Hedgehog argument. But you can also tweet at us at NinCart Society, and the Facebook page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you like the show, remember, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. Also, share the episode on social media platforms. If you like Mark and mine's opinions about stuff we write about comic books. We don't write comic books on ReckonPunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can check out his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, we get it. We get Sonic now.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?